work as a general labor. Even I was working as a general labor in laundry plant, but after 2 weeks, they replied me, you have no more room in our company because we are scared and we have no job for you as a laundry man. And after that, there is a big question for me also. There is a big question for my family also, because now where we have to go, now what we can to do, because we are scared even now. And I want to tell you one thing about that organization who attack on me, and I give that names to police, and they are investigating right now. That's institution, they are Muslims, they so-called very liberal, moderate, and they have that claim because we are very liberal and moderate. But I have memories, I have a past belongs to that organizations who they want to kill journalists even back home. And just one thing I want to tell you people. I remember when I was working in Pakistan as a journalist in daily newspaper, there is people came inside of newspaper with Kalashnikovs, with weapons, and we think maybe we do some mistake and maybe we do publish some stories against them, or we was confused because what we done we don't know, and they came here with weapons, with Kalashnikovs, and with all kind of latest weapons. And what they want their leaders' news on the front page, just because of that. And so many times I was there, I know there is a bloodshed on that workers in their kameez and shirts who they raised little bit voice about that groups, and they want to kill that all peoples, and they broken that all windows of that newspapers, and they just want a main news in front of the newspaper. And one thing more, because I want to close that my words. So I want to say that in back home also, the all religious groups, they are blackmailers. They are blackmail the politicians, Pakistani government, Pakistani officials, Pakistani army even. And I have to say that these kind of fanatics, these kind of extremists, and these kind of religious groups, they are blackmailer here also. And they show that because we have these like of peoples, and we have this quantity of peoples to in our mosque for pray, in our mosque to obey our speeches, in our mosque to obey our direction. They are blackmailers to Canadian politicians also. They are blackmailers to Canadian government also. And they are blackmailing our good peoples who they believe.
It will be over. I mean, not just with these technologies, with biochemistry. If things get released from the labs, they could be enormous plagues, and we don't have the resources either to deal with those. And that's the problem. And I was thinking about Kennedy, for example, like nuclear weaponry had been developed, and then was there the crisis in Cuba. There was Kennedy, his brother, and others who could handle it well. Today, in my opinion, we don't have those sort of politicians. And we don't have, sure we have rules to try and keep these things under control, but they're not very effective. I mean, right now, the States is putting missiles in Poland to counter what's happening in Iran. I mean, we have these rules, but they're not working. And Israel has said as well, But if the international community doesn't do anything, we're going to bomb them. You know, it started just a few months with the low-level minister, and now it's the defense minister. We don't control these things. We don't control people. People aren't learning. They have their own agendas. They're not thinking about scientists, about thinking what's benefit for the greatness of mankind, about the extension of human life, possibly another planets. They're thinking about themselves and their needs right now. So, you know, there's a higher ideals, and these people will have their other ideals. I think that's the problem. So my question is, I should present the question. Present the question, realizing all those things and the dangers now, that if a mistake is made, it's very easy. Wouldn't it be best to close up all the labs and just leave them?
You could argue that.
I put that creatively.
Sure, no, I understand. But I think that, you know, there are historians out there that would argue that with every step forward there's that risk, and there are a number of people that make the analogy that, you know, starting from us as infants and moving forward, you know, every little exploration that we take as we learn and as we develop, there is that risk, you know, that we don't survive, right? So I mean, everything we do as humans, there is that inherent risk. So it just becomes a matter of, you know, furthering our knowledge and doing it in a reasonably intelligent way, and being able to, you know, sort of mitigate those risks. Now the thing is that you can, you know, there's the whole idea that you can, you know, sit and do nothing, and that can be just as risky as doing something, right? The whole idea of, you know, the whole idea of going back in time, right? Like the butterfly effect, I guess.
That's a good point. You know, when Kennedy said, go to the moon, not because it's easy, because it's hard. Maybe we should admit the challenges now are too hard for us to face.
And that has actually come up in things, and people have brought that up when it comes to things like the shuttle, like systems like the shuttle. The fact that you have a system there that is so complex. Is it possible that we as humans are developing systems that we ultimately can't control? And I don't have an answer to that. It's just a question that's out there, and, you know, people are thinking, and that I think is one of the, you know, what makes us human, is the fact that we can analyze these things and analyze these potential risks and make these kinds of judgments, and then just try and, you know, move forward in the evolutionary chain.
Yeah, these are all very interesting issues. I guess what I would argue is that in terms of these types of risks, science itself is not the root, I'm going to put cause in quotation marks, because science as properly executed and as properly, if one were to follow the scientific method, it is inherently self-correcting. The problems manifest when external factors impose themselves on science. And I'm talking about political pressures or economic pressures or social pressures. And if we look at some of the great technological catastrophes of, say, the last 25 years, from, say, the Chernobyl accident in the Ukraine, that was a political failure. If we look at the Challenger accident, that was again a political failure. There were pressures put on to launch the system when it wasn't ready to do so. And really what encapsulates that is the very famous quote from Richard Feynman. I just love quotes, you probably noticed that. But the quote from Richard Feynman, who sat on the Rogers Commission that investigated the Challenger accident, and he said, for a successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations, for nature cannot be fooled. And perhaps that sense that, you know, the concept that nature cannot be fooled and what is real is something that comes second nature to those of a scientific or a humanist or secular bent, and not so, unfortunately, for others who may be in the decision-making seat. And I think that's where the risk is.